Good morning. Thank you very much, Kevin, for that kind introduction, and thank you to the BCPVPA for initiating this series of webinars, which began last year, and were quite successful. And we're really pleased to be invited back to continue sharing our information to your members and to share and have these archived on your channel. So thank you very much. Again, my name is Janet Powell. I'm the Director of Provincial, National, and International Assessment at the Ministry of Education. What that means in layman terms is I am in charge of the FSA, and that's the development, administration, and marking of the FSA, as well as BC's involvement in our national and international assessments, and those are PISA, PCAP, and PEARLS. So thanks to everyone for taking the time to listen in this morning. I'm happy to be here and provide you information and updates on the FSA. My aim is that by the end of this webinar, you'll know the important dates for FSA this year. You'll be reminded of the format of the FSA and where to go for support and resources to help you have a very successful FSA administration and marking for the 2018-19 school year. Little overview of my presentation. I'll provide a quick reminder of the purpose of the FSA and how we got here, useful information on administration and marking. I'll give you a brief description about the local FSA reports that are available to you in your schools, share with you the resources and important information, and finally, I'm happy to take some questions at the end of the presentation. The FSA is British Columbia's earliest provincial indicator of student performance and provides strong evidence of future student achievement. The FSA is written in grades 4 and 7 and is the first provincially administered assessment in which students participate. The FSA assesses students' reading, writing, and numeracy skills. That early assessment of reading, writing, and numeracy shows the importance and the value of these key foundational skills. Also recognizes that grade 4 and grade 7 continue to be important transition years. There are three main purposes of the FSA, and they are to provide system-level information on student performance, provide district and schools with information on student performance, and also to support decision-making for a variety of purposes. So I'll give you a bit of a recap about how we got to this redesigned FSA. The Advisory Group on Provincial Assessment, otherwise known as AGPA, made several recommendations regarding provincial assessment in the early years of school. And this report was published in 2014. The report included recommendations on the design and the purpose. And following those recommendations, a working group of teachers, administrators, and measurement experts provided a general design of the new FSA. From 2014 to 2017, teams of educators from across the province, as well as the Yukon, worked together to develop the new FSA, which is built on the recommendations of AGPA and the guidance of that FSA redesign working group. In the fall of 2016, the new FSA was field tested in public and independent schools across the province. Assessment questions from the field test were refined, and feedback from schools on that administered the field test was collected and considered. The new FSA was administered live in the fall of 2017. By all accounts, this was a very successful information, but we were more than happy to receive feedback so that we've been able to refine the FSA and the supports that the ministry provides to make it a successful assessment. So we'll talk a little bit about now some of the resources that are available to support FSA. And the main source of information to help administer the FSA is the FSA Administration Manual. And what you'll see on your screens is the cover from this year's manual. It's updated every year and contains a great deal of helpful information. This manual is mailed to schools and the district FSA contact with all the FSA materials, and it's also available online. It's currently available on our FSA website if you'd like to take a look after the webinar. It's important that all administrators and teachers who are administering and entering the scores for the FSA are familiar with this resource. This is where the answers to all their questions can be found, hopefully. The administration manual is divided into 5 main sections. a section for general information, supervising the FSA, online administration guide, score entry system, and a feedback form. The first section contains general information. Who should write the assessment, for example? That's included in the administration manual. And as a reminder, it's all students who are in grade 4 and 7 that should be writing the FSA, with very limited exceptions. There's details about this on page 5 of the manual if you're interested. This section also contains information on adaptations, identifying students no longer enrolled, scoring and score entry information, and generating results reports. The second section of the manual provides information that will help as you administer the assessment. This section includes information on preparing for the assessment and includes administration checklists, information on the self-reflection component, and generating confirmation codes. So it's in this section that you'll be reminded that that self-reflection component of the online portion of the FSA automatically pops up when students have finished both components of the online FSA. So for example, if a student writes the reading online component first, it will be after they complete the numeracy online component that self-reflection comes up. There's nothing that administrators need to do to prep that to come up for students. The third section is the online administration user's guide. This section provides technical information, including preparing workstations, preparing an administration system test, student login information, navigating the online assessment, and using the administration functions. This information will help you troubleshoot as you move through the FSA administration. The fourth section is the score entry systems guide. It provides information on data entry for written response scores and the different modes that are available for entering that data. And finally, at the end of the manual is a feedback form. We would love to hear back from teachers and administrators on the assessment content and the supporting materials that the ministry provides. So on the inside front cover of the FSA administration manual is your go-to list of important dates, key Ministry of Education contacts, and website links. Now, I recognize that this might be looking a little bit small on your screen and you might be trying to furiously write down the dates and that contact information. It's on our website right now, and we'll be going over those important dates a little bit more in detail at the end of this webinar. The marking of the student booklet component of the FSA remains at the local school and district level, as it has been for many years. Districts and the Federation of Independent Schools receive funding for marking activities. And in addition to the funding, the ministry provides marking supports such as scoring guides, sample responses, and student exemplars. Once districts and schools have finished marking the student booklets, the scores must be entered into the system. The score entry deadline for this year's FSA is November 23rd. It's important to note that both the administration period for the FSA and the score entry deadline cannot be extended for any reason. FSA administrators are advised to build in a step for checking the data into their timelines so that necessary data corrections are entered by November 23rd. To review how districts and schools across the province are marking the FSA, the ministry holds a monitoring session to remark a selection of student booklets from all school districts and from some selected independent schools. The ministry will continue this activity for the 2018-19 FSA. All districts and some independent schools are required to photocopy and submit a specified number of marked student booklets from both grade 4 and grade 7. FSA district contacts will receive that information regarding the number of student booklets that they will be needing to photocopy. Those booklets are to be sent to the ministry by December 7th, 2018, or 2018, sorry, I'm mixing my years up. In July of 2019, the ministry will hold a monitoring session where all those student booklets are remarked. The ministry will then be able to report out on the scoring alignment for each district and for the province. In July 2018, we held an FSA monitoring session, and it showed that there was a very high alignment between local scores and the scores from the monitoring session. This gives us confidence that wherever a student writes their FSA, educators are using the scoring materials to mark in a consistent manner. This provincial report on monitored marking should be posted on the FSA website in the next few weeks, and FSA district contacts will receive their district scoring report shortly after. So in this section, we'll talk about the FSA local reports that are available to schools. So these are the reports that are available to download immediately after score entry. And one of the advantages of moving the FSA to a fall administration is that schools and districts are able to see those student and school results early in the school year so they can be effective. These reports are available as soon as a school has entered their scores. The reports that are generated are based on raw scores and are not considered to be the official results. There are three main reports that are available after score entry: the student level report, a school level report, and an item level report. Our continued aim is to make these reports useful for schools and for classroom teachers, and we would love some feedback on how to make these as useful and user-friendly for the teacher and the principal in the school, as well as the parent who receives that student report. The student level report is available once schools have entered their scores for the written component of the FSA. This early information may be useful for both teachers and parents, so it should be shared as soon as possible. What you're seeing on your screens is a draft, or not a draft, it is what the student level report would look like. It's a sample. The report has been updated based on feedback from last year's interim report. It's a one-page report, single-sided, that should be shared with parents. How and when this is shared, it's up to the schools and districts, and it should reflect the context of both the FSA and the schools. The report describes a child's overall results and the three components of the FSA, that is reading, writing, and numeracy. The results have been categorized into one of three proficiency levels, and those are emerging, on track, or extending. The child's results in this sample have been highlighted for each of those components. So you can see on this report, the child's proficiency level for reading is extending. So that's highlighted in the third column. Information on how to print this report is available in the FSA Administration Manual. A reminder to review the notes on how to print those reports so that you can print them up so they fit correctly onto the page. This is a closer look at those proficiency levels from the FSA. The report contains the proficiency scale that has been written specifically for the FSA and for the grades that students are writing the FSA, and it provides information on what students can do at each level. These are strength-based descriptions. The FSA school level report shows the raw score for all students for all components of the FSA in a school. This is very similar to the report that was available last year. In the February-March 2018 FSA standard setting session, cut scores and proficiency level descriptors for each of the FSA components were established by a team of professionals, including measurement experts and educators from across the province. Now that the cut scores have been established, the FSA school level report has been updated from last year to include those cut scores and the proficiency levels. This example of a draft school level report shows all the information by raw score for this entire school. There are 4 key breakdowns of the data. So we'll just think about reading for the purposes of this webinar. So for the reading component, it will show for each student the number of online reading items that were attempted, the online score for reading, the score on each of the open-ended reading questions, and the proficiency level achieved for reading. And that's repeated for writing and for numeracy. As well, the text that the student entered from the self-reflection component, the online self-reflection component is also included. There's a second tab on this report that breaks down each of the reading, writing, and numeracy components into cognitive levels. There are 3 cognitive levels, and the first one is recall, the second level is skills and concepts, and the third level is strategic thinking. The second tab on this Excel file provides the raw score for each of those cognitive levels in reading, writing, and numeracy. The Excel file of all the FSA data in the school will allow administrators to further delve into the data and view and analyze it in multiple ways. And it's really important for administrators to share and to make this data available for classroom teachers. Finally, an item level report will also be available for the FSA. This report includes 4 tabs, 1 tab for each grade, 4 and grade 7, and each online component of reading and numeracy. In this report, it includes a brief descriptor of each item, and as well as a cognitive level and the curriculum connection. So this is about the items and not about scores. There are many resources available to administer and score the FSA. We've spoken to a bit about the administration guide, and that's your first place to go for information on administering and entering scores for the FSA. The FSA scoring guide provides information on how to conduct a scoring session and includes the scoring rubrics for reading, writing, and numeracy. The possible solutions document provides some examples of possible solutions on the open-ended questions, which can be used during your scoring sessions. So these 3 resources will be mailed to schools and districts with their FSA materials. The provincial exemplars and rationales, which will be available by October 26, provides actual student responses to the questions in this year's student booklets, as well as the scores and the rationales for these scores. A really big thank you to all the districts that mark early and supply the ministry with these exemplars. Thanks very much for your contribution and your continued support of the FSA. The main ministry website provides an overview of the new FSA and a description of all the components, which are the collaboration component, open-ended component, online component, and the self-reflection component. It also provides some links to supporting information, such as a parent brochure, an educator update, and Q&As. And finally, the Ministry Administration website provides an online copy of the administration manual in both English and French, links to the samples and scoring guides, as well as the online assessment link. So as promised, here's a little bit more in-depth important information as a reminder. So FSA administration dates are October 1st to November 9th, 2018. All the FSA materials will be shipped out on the first week of September, and all schools should receive those materials by the 21st of September. FSA scoring entry deadline is November 23rd. And the deadline to identify score entry errors and students no longer enrolled is also November 23rd. During your administration of the online portion of the FSA, if you're experiencing technical difficulties, the best place to go for information besides the FSA administration manual is right to AWIS technical support. So on the screen, you'll see their 1866 number as well as their email. They've been administering the FSA for many years and have seen all the, they've troubleshooted everything that they've been able to see. They know about different platforms for administrating, what you need to do to make it smoother. So they are a big help, and they make sure that they will help to make sure that you are successful in your online administration. If you have questions about accommodations for the FSA for some of your students, you can contact our adjudications branch at the email provided. If you have questions or need information on a student's personal education number to support the FSA, please contact our PENS coordinator. So on the screen, there's an email address as well as a telephone number. So all this information is what's included on the front cover, inside front page of the FSA Administration Manual. So that's it for my presentation. As promised, it was a quick update on where we're at with the FSA, a reminder of where materials are to support your administration, how we got to where we got to with our redesigned FSA, information on the reports that are available. And now I'm going to turn it to Kevin, who's going to throw a couple of questions at me based on your questions that you've been putting in the dialogue box.
Great. Well, thank you, Janet, for the comprehensive overview of the FSA program. It seems to me, as I monitor the chat box, we have a number of people who are on the presentation today who are administering FSA for the first time, probably new vice principals in their schools are doing so. So I know this would be very helpful for them. I did see a couple of questions that popped up in the question box, and it was related to accessing 2017 results for kids. It seems to be that some confusion about how to do that, or they weren't able to access their results from 2017. Are you able to speak to that?
Yes, unfortunately, I'm not going to give you an answer that maybe is as comprehensive as you'd like. So bearing in mind that this is a new FSA last year with a variety of new components, and so we not only had to redesign the FSA, but we had to redesign and update and test the system that takes all those scores, does the item analysis, and that goes into our education data warehouse. The education data warehouse is still working on compiling those results and then reporting out on the 2017-18, last year's FSA. So they're not ready yet, but they are being worked on, so you know that. Just so you know, this next year for our next FSA administration that's coming up, it will not take that long to get the results back to schools and districts, because we've already ironed out all the system kinks, but that's where we're at with that right now. So apologies for the delay, but that's kind of what happens when you revamp an entire system.
Of course, understood. So once that is done, a question that came up is, would teachers or school leaders be able to print out a report of all of the proficiency levels student by student on those three areas? Will it allow them to do that once the data is in there?
Well, they'll be able to do that once this year's FSA scores are entered via that Excel spreadsheet. They'll be able to see those proficiency levels for each of the students. So they'll be able to sort of slice it and dice it in multiple ways, which is the beauty of the Excel spreadsheet. So that, yes, the short answer is yes for that.
Okay, good, thank you. So just a question, and it's been a while since I've administered the FSA myself, and the last time I did that, students took the booklets home once all that they had been marked, and I actually found that to be very helpful for parents to really be able to go and look through how their children did on the exam. Is that still the process? Kids are able to take the booklets home after the FSA booklets have been marked?
So in the past, we've been pretty prescriptive about how and when those go home, and we've really tried to leave it a little bit more up to schools and districts to think about the best way to share that information. So absolutely, I think having those scored booklets go home with the student level report, either sent home or shared with a parent during a parent-teacher conferences, or whatever way makes the most sense for schools and for districts. Just a reminder, before they get sent home, make sure your district has photocopied the number of student booklets they need to send in for that FSA marking monitoring session.
Right, good. So a question from Michael. I'm not sure that I do understand this question, but he probably has more technical knowledge on this than I do. So Michael writes, there was talk last year of some changes by AWS regarding the web browser to be used for FSA numeracy literacy exams. Is that still the plan? And assuming being able to use different web browsers to access the online components?
The system hasn't changed much since last year, so I can't really speak to the the grad assessments, but I know AWIS has been working on opening it up much more for FSA, and they've been testing that. So there's definitely a few more options available, but I can only speak to FSA.
Okay, good. You know, I often administered the FSA in my school. I know I would say most principals and vice principals do in their school. It's a really good opportunity for you to see how kids are doing. And it also frees up teachers, particularly in split classes, to work with the other grades. And this probably, and I know the vice principals and principals who are administering want to make sure kids are well prepared for this. So they do have the opportunity for kids to take practice assessments. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have online samples for both the reading and numeracy online components. So students can go in there with their teachers. No registration is required, and do a sample of the FSA. And I think it's a good opportunity, especially for those early grade 4 students who are taking the FSA, to become familiar with the types of questions, because they're now, as you know, they're not all multiple choice questions. There's some drag and drop and sequencing questions. So it's an opportunity for students to become familiar and comfortable with how the FSA looks and feels and how to manipulate those questions. As well as there's samples of the student booklets available for teachers if they would like to take a look at what that looks like. And the other thing to sort of help prepare students for the FSA, besides those samples, it's really important to carefully and thoughtfully administer that collaboration activity, which immediately precedes the reading student booklet component of the FSA. That's an opportunity to have kids feel comfortable and confident about what they're about to do, to brainstorm some ideas about the themes that are presented. So we've really tried to incorporate multiple ways for students to feel comfortable and to maybe lessen some of that anxiety that they may feel regarding the assessment.
Okay. We are coming to the close of our webinar. There's still a number of questions, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I will copy and paste those questions, send them all to Janet so that she can respond to them. Unfortunately, we're not able to get to all of the questions, but one final one, and this is feedback from last year with the changes to the format. We have one participant who's felt, and colleagues confirmed, the grade 4 math scores appeared perhaps lower than in previous years. And just curious, is this a trend the ministry have noticed, and have the cut scores marking sessions been adjusted to address this? Is this a trend, or is this an anomaly, and was that addressed sort of with this year's version of FSA?
Well, it's hard to speak to trends when this is a brand new FSA administered at a different time of the school year. So it's you know, we don't really like to compare backwards to previous FSAs. But what we had some really thoughtful and knowledgeable educators that took part in that standard setting session. And so they were really aware of the time of the FSA and what they expected students to know, do, and understand early in grade 4 and early in grade 7. So I think it's, you know, I think we can talk about trends maybe in a year or two on both the reading, writing, and numeracy. It'd be kind of dangerous to talk about that right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to backpedal. I said that was going to be our last question, but this will be our last question. And so the question is that access times for the practice test seem limited from this participant's perspective last year, and they do want to make sure that their students are well prepared for that. So is it possible to include those practice times to include evenings and weekends for kids who want to prepare for it at home?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer to that, so I will look. I know AWIS is available for administration from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., but I think those online samples are available anytime. But I will follow up on that. Thank you for that question.
Good. And as I said, we do have some more questions. I will send them off to Janet and her team, and we'll get responses out to our participants as soon as possible. But I think that'll probably, we need to give Janet some time, so that'll happen within 2 or 3 weeks. Probably that gives you enough time, Janet.
Yeah.
And with that, do you have any final comments you'd like to make, Janet?
No, but thank you very much for inviting me to present today, as well as my colleagues on Wednesday and Thursday morning. And we really hope that you find these webinars informative, and it's great to always connect with you. So thank you so much.